Welcome to the Lovability Podcast. My name is Jennifer Stiers, and I'm here to talk love, relationships, sex, marriage, and everything in between. Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Lovability Show. I am here today with my guest, Laura Carranza. Did I say that right?
You did. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, perfect. And we're talking about narcissism today. So I'm super excited about this conversation. You know, Laura, I've had a couple other guests on to talk about narcissism in the past. And every time we talk about it, it's a different conversation, right? Because there's so much to discuss and it's such a big topic. So Laura is a speaker and an author. She has her own podcast now, just a brand new podcast you've just launched. What is the name of your podcast?
It's called Real Life with Laura.
I can't wait to wait to watch it.
The first episode aired Tuesday.
First episode was Tuesday, and I'm going to be on there soon. So you guys will see me on there in a few weeks, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so you also do a podcast, or you've done a YouTube show with Dr. Les Carter,
right?
Who specializes in narcissism.
Yes.
So you've been talking about this a long time.
A long time. And
Yeah.
I've lived it for, was raised by a narcissist and then married one, because we usually marry one of our parents.
You know, this is where we're going to start, because it's such a big conversation and there's so many ways to go about it. So let's start with that, with you know, there are people that say that there might be a genetic component. I've heard this, that there might be a genetic component. The other part of it is that, you know, being raised by a narcissist, I can't tell you how many clients I've had that come in that have been attracting narcissists into their life and have issues getting into relationships. So they're having lots of self-esteem and confidence issues, and it's because of being raised by a narcissist. So let's kind of let's talk about that component a little bit, because it's also different for a woman and a man.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
And whether the narcissist in their family was a mother or a father. So I bet we didn't go through this, so you may not have it, but do you have the traits of a daughter raised by a narcissistic mother?
I can tell you about my experience and some of my clients.
Because it was your mom.
It was my mom.
It was your mom.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they expect perfection.
Mm-hmm.
You are there to shine the light on that person. Right. Yes.
So a lot of the beauty pageant
Yes,
kids, they're in a lot of the mothers that are narcissists will put their children through beauty pageants and things like that because they want to live vicariously through their beautiful children, their beautiful daughters. Sorry,
right. Yeah. And you can see it in other ways, like competitive cheerleading.
Yes.
Sports, maybe a great softball player or volleyball player. Mm-hmm. Academically, it's whatever the parent is trying to live through their child.
Right. Yeah, you know, it is amazing to me how daughters of narcissists, you know, you are one, but that struggle to be enough and that struggle to be worthy or pretty enough, or, you know, the narcissistic mom is brutal. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brutal. You grow up. There are three things that most of my clients share with me, and probably yours do as well. I'm not enough.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy, and I'm not lovable.
Right.
Because those are the messages that you receive.
So, ladies, you know, I guess I just want to say to you, if you're hearing this for the first time and this is something that may resonate with you, and this is something that you struggle with, there are obviously other reasons that you could have these show up. It doesn't have to be a narcissistic mom, but it doesn't hurt to look it up and to read into it a little bit. That's what I have my clients do. I'll just say, yeah, I don't want to throw a label on somebody. Mm-hmm. I don't want them to have to worry about that part of it. But I say just read about it. See if anything resonates with you. It's amazing how many women come back and go, "Oh my God, that was my mom."
Have you read the book? It's by Karen McBride. It's it's something like Will I Ever Be Good Enough? But it's Karen McBride. Fantastic book, all about narcissistic mothers and their daughters.
Awesome. Hey, I just want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. Christy and Sarah and Martha and Suzanne, Elizabeth, Jeff, welcome to the Lovability Show. We're glad you're here. I want to encourage questions also. I recognize some of the names here as well. Hey, Jerry Ann. I know some of you can relate to some of this conversation, so feel free to chime in and tell us your thoughts and ask any questions that you would like to as well as we're going along. And, the interesting part too, I was with somebody that had a narcissistic mother, a man that had a narcissistic mom, and he was put up on a pedestal. And that's typically, either criticized or put up on a pedestal. But he was completely a great athlete, put up on a pedestal, and it damaged. That's what made him the way he is. And even though I wouldn't categorize him as narcissistic personality disorder, he had narcissistic traits because of that. So upbringing, and I'm a big fan of the learning behaviorist theory, that upbringing can put a lot of that into you as well. If you're put up on a pedestal your whole life and you've been the star athlete or the star cheerleader, whatever it is, all that attention tends to feed into narcissism later in life and it's, hard thing to
Dr.
get
Carter
over.
and I, on the first show, we talked about, are you a narcissist? Am I a narcissist? Because we often ask that question. Well, I've been around narcissists for so many years, and narcissism, it can be contagious. I mean, you can pick up some of those traits.
That's frightening.
Yeah,
That's
but
really
you can.
frightening.
You learn if you watch someone gaslight many times, then you might find yourself doing it to someone else, and you're, whoa.
That's interesting. Well, the other part of it too is, number one, if you have to ask yourself if you're a narcissist, you're probably not.
Exactly.
Or you think you are.
Exactly.
Because most narcissists cannot acknowledge that they are, or look at anything else that could be a negative trait in themselves.
Try to drag a narcissist into therapy, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So let's kind of go through what the traits are of a narcissist, because I think you start, again, where does it start? Family, right? Home, whether there's a genetic component or whether it is a learned behavior, it starts at home. A lot of you people out there that are attracting narcissistic partners, it may be because one of your parents were a narcissist. So it's something to look into. So let's talk about the characteristics of a narcissist from DSM.
Right. From DSM. Yeah. And if you guys don't know what the DSM is, I'm sure Jen has gone over it many times. It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. So there are 9 traits of narcissism. And if the psychologists and psychiatrists who put this list together say, and Jen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 5 of the 9 means someone has NPD. We'll just use NPD for short. So it's a spectrum, much like autism or Parkinson's. It's a long line. So as you get closer and closer to that 5 of 9, you're more narcissistic. And the narcissist in my life for a significant amount of time,
wow,
the partner, the ex, had 8 of the 9.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, not easy. But you come out stronger on the other end. But let's go over those. Okay. A grandiose sense of self-importance. That's one. Another one is a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, and ideal love. The next one, a belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood or should associate with other special or high-status people. Yeah. We've all met those people that go to social gatherings and they will only go to certain ones because I'm not going to socialize
and
with
will
that
only
group.
Socialize with certain people.
Yes,
or
exactly.
only need to be seen in certain crowds.
Yeah. A need for excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, exploitive behavior, a lack of empathy. That's probably the biggest indicator that someone might be a narcissist. So a lack of empathy. It's high control and low empathy. Envy of others, or a belief that others are envious of him or her, and a demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes. So those are the 9. And you
Yeah.
can just Google it if you need the list.
And they all show up in so many different ways. I think number one, the people that seem to be a lot of times people think just because people take a lot of selfies that somebody's a narcissist, and it's not necessarily true. However, there is an element to that is, truth. They have an exaggerated sense of self. They love seeing themselves, so they figure that everybody else loves seeing them as well.
Right.
But I think that there's you look at somebody's Instagram or Facebook, and if their whole feed is their face, like, look at the sun is shining today, and it's their face and not the sun. That's somebody that was just looking for a reason to post a picture of themselves because they love themselves so much.
Right.
I mean, and that is the obvious, like, that is an obvious sign of, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that exaggerated sense of self-importance. And, the other part of that, where they have this image of great love. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think from a partnership standpoint and a relationship standpoint, this is where we see the love bombing, right?
Right.
And all the other things, like if you look at what narcissists do in a relationship, they love bomb. There's an exaggerated emphasis put on the love and the relationship and the connection part of it. They make you feel super special. Like you have this great connection. I don't have this with anybody else. They make you believe also, we have this unique thing that I've never had with anybody else. So you feel uniquely special in their life. They know how to do that.
They
right?
put you on a pedestal.
They do.
But it's only for a short period of time. That's the problem. And it's I often get asked, well, who's the real person? And I'm like, the real person's actually when the mask falls off, because for a narcissist, especially a covert narcissist, it is exhausting to have that mask on the entire time. And something new that I've learned, and I noticed it in a relationship with a narcissist a few years ago. Have you heard of the term future faking? It finally has
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They build a future with you verbally and tell you what your future is going to look like with them, and then they discard you, or it's over. And you're left hurting. It is so painful. You're like, what just happened? We were going to retire together.
Right.
We were going to do this together.
Yeah, they build the dream. It's all about needing to be, especially for a man, the Prince Charming. So these guys that build you up and talk about your life together and all the things that you're going to do, and you're going to get married, and this is the things that we're going to do together in our life together. That's a form of love, Bonnie, but that is manipulation, is what it is.
Right.
So the whole looking into the future, and it's a way of manipulating, and having the more that their victim, hate to say it, can buy into the story or the illusion, that the more that they're hooked. And that's why it's so hard to get out of these relationships, because they've built in such a pretty picture and made it seem so special and unique and beautiful that it's real. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday that finally got out of a relationship with a narcissist and completely sees through everything, but it's still hard. It's still a matter of having to sit back and look at this stuff like we're talking about it right now, and recognize when you are being what is it called?
Future faking.
Future faking, when terms, I love the terms. When you're future faking things, or you're being gaslighted, or whatever it is, when you understand what it is, you're able to understand the behavior and look back and make sense of it, and protect yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, from it happening again. So hi, Barbara. And Jamie says, okay, are they seeking attention or validation due to low self-esteem? Are you talking about probably about the selfie thing, Jamie? Well, attention seeking and validation attention seeking is part of narcissism. Seeking validation is for insecure people, but the thing that is true of a narcissist is they are insecure. They're very insecure. So, but all of those, low self-esteem, all of those also are narcissistic traits. Could it be that they're not a narcissist and they just have low self-esteem? Sure. But again, extreme examples would be somebody overly obsessed with themselves. That's not, that's not an insecurity. That's a mental disorder. I mean, it just, right?
Right. I mean, well, narcissism is a mental health disorder.
It is.
It's considered a cluster B personality disorder. It's not just the guy or girl who walks into the room and owns the joint. No. It's much more damaging and destructive than that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the, hey, Jenny, I think that's one of the hardest things about narcissistic relationships. And I know we're jumping around a little bit, and we will, but it's that whole, what we were just talking about with getting wrapped up in this love bombing at first, and then the future faking and the gaslighting, which wears away at your self-esteem over time, and the way that a narcissist isolates you ultimately. That's another big thing that happens amongst narcissists, is they can do whatever they want, but they control you. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because so Laura's had 2 narcissistic relationships long-term. One was her long-term marriage, and one was a relationship, and they were actually 2 different types of narcissists. So I want her to kind of reference that as well, because there are different, according to psychology, there's 2 different, the grandiose and whatever.
Right.
And then there's a narcissistic personality disorder, which is completely different. Mm-hmm. What is it? It's grandiose, and then
which is also called overt.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's the what is it called? Compassionate, or it's something like the vulnerable narcissist.
Covert, vulnerable.
Anyway, so there's 2 types, and then there's a narcissistic personality disorder. So there's many types of narcissism, but you had 2 different types.
Right.
You had 2. So why don't we discuss that a little bit, and your experiences and how they were different? Because I think people want to lump narcissism into one big category, and it's not. It's not. There are different types, and based on the type, the recovery for each one is different, and what it does to you, and how long it takes you to get over it. All these factors matter.
Mm-hmm. So this entire book was written about the person who raised me that's a narcissist, and then
it's called Ugly Love.
Ugly Love, yeah. And I'm also on YouTube with Dr. Les Carter. We have Surviving Narcissism, so check us out there. We have a great partnership.
Great source, guys. Love to have this. We're talking about it, and we're touching on a lot of little things, but if you want more, I would definitely say go there, because that's what they've been talking about forever. How many years have you been on
3.
there? 3
we
years.
have almost
That's
awesome.
500,000
subscribers now. It's crazy.
Amazing. Good.
Crazy.
Okay.
So Malignant, and then the most recent experience, because I didn't know enough about the covert, or it sometimes is called the vulnerable narcissist. Mm-hmm. So the malignant overt narcissist is the guy, girl who walks into the room, Jennifer, they own the joint, they're loud, or they need the attention. They get that attention some way, somehow. They're more sinister in my mind. It's easier to pick them out. Mm-hmm. Maybe their gaslighting isn't as hidden. They're not as passive aggressive as the covert narcissist. Mm-hmm. The covert narcissist is that person that you meet and you go, oh, that's a safe person. I think I'll be vulnerable with him or her. And that is one lesson I've learned, is not to get vulnerable until you absolutely 100% trust someone. So that you go, oh, that's a safe person. Like, for example, me, I'm like, oh, he's a safe guy. So, oh, wow,
What ways does the covert narcissist make you feel safe? Give you that initial?
Great question.
Yeah.
They listen. And they go, oh, I see, I understand. Oh, yes. And they are very good at mirroring. They listen long enough to mirror what you want. So, for example, I wanted a good Christian man who goes to church, who's a good dad, but also loves to have a great time. That was mirrored right back to me.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I am going to say this is really important what she's talking about right now, because that initial listening for what is important to you, that is used for manipulation throughout the relationship for years to come. So they are amazing listeners, and they take your vulnerabilities, they take your pains, your hurts, your wounds, and they make a note of it. They have a note of it because they know exactly when to pull it up to use it against you.
Right.
They are
right.
taking really good notes. They are amazing listeners here. So I just wanted to stop you because that was a really important point, is that they are listening really, really well.
They are, and they may try to emulate what you're saying, and as they understand, and I've been through that too, so you open up even more. They have all these tactics to do that. And you're so correct, Jennifer, where it hurts you is later on, and it'll come out in passive-aggressive behavior. And two of the things that hurt me the most, and it may hurt others the most, is the silent treatment, which is a message to the victim or survivor that you're not even worth speaking to, that you're not important enough for me to share what's going on in my life with you, to keep you informed of my plans.
Yeah.
That is so painful. And then the little passive-aggressive remarks. Maybe you're having a great time with someone, and I'll give you an example. So I was having a great time with the guy, and he goes, "Hey, let me take a picture. That's a great, right there. Stay there. Let me take a picture. Smile." We were outside. And then he goes, "You can use this for your profile picture soon." What? Wait a minute. Like, are you telling me we're breaking up? But you're so stunned because last night was the I love you. So it's so unsettling. And then you start working harder to save the relationship.
Yes. Yeah. And the covert narcissist too, again, they're more secretive about what they're doing. Let's talk about the grandiose. Let's talk about the other one. That's
Yeah, sure.
right?
I was talking about the covert at the end there. So we can go back to the overt, or many times malignant. There can be a malignant covert.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many terms we can throw around, but let's talk about the grandiose malignant narcissist. They're more open, like, one more outburst, Laura, and this relationship's over. They're more, will just tell you how they feel and like it is. And you can start crying, and they'll push and make you cry more, and then go, "See, I can't even have a conversation with you." They like to stir the pot and then make you be in the wrong.
Right. The thing about how does the person, the victim of a narcissist, become addicted to the partner? Because that's a key piece in all of this. So there's the things that they do and the symptoms and the behaviors that they have. But how does that victim become addicted to? Because it is an addiction.
It is, and it's what the endorphins in your brain and the oxytocin that you feel when things are great. Because in the cycle of abuse, there's the love bombing, then there's the devaluation phase, which is what we've been talking about. You can use this for a profile picture. What? You're the silent treatment. You're subtly being belittled, and you're getting smaller and smaller in your mind, and the narcissist is getting stronger and stronger and more in control. And then there's usually a rage, especially with the malignant narcissist. They finally just blow up. And then you're back to the love bombing, but at that point it's called hearts and flowers, and it doesn't last very long, but they promise things will change. That cycle is why we get stuck. And it's that right there, that hearts and flowers, where we go, "Oh, he means it this time. He is going to change." Did it 13 years. With the guy, 16 years.
Yeah.
I kept wanting to go back to the beginning of the relationship.
Well, they're really good at being able to talk you back to how to do that.
Oh my
that they're going to change.
Aren't they?
I think there's that element of too, where when you've been in a abusive relationship, which is what this is, a mentally, emotionally abusive relationship, you become addicted to pleasing, making that person happy. And I think that's part of the addiction too, when you're trying to get out of it, is that whole idea of they're so critical and of you in the relationship. and then that you look for those areas, especially if you grew up in a critical home where you were a pleaser, that you end up with a narcissist and addicted to pleasing, and that love and attention and affection that a narcissist can give you when they're happy with you, or when they're showering you with love or love bombing you. That's what most people hold out for when they're with a narcissist is, and everybody can probably relate to this if you've been in a relationship with one, is you say, I kept waiting for them to be that person again.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, who they were when we first met was so different than who they became that you keep thinking they're going to go back. And that's part of the addiction too, is for you wanting to believe the best in them. And they're really good at finding partners that will do that too.
Well, we believe often we're the partners who believe the best in everyone. And we think if we look at the world through a certain lens that this narcissist and everyone else will do the same. And it's unfortunately, it's just not the case. What I tell people to do and my clients to do is when you meet someone, you don't judge good or bad. Be neutral and let them prove themselves what they are, because the truth will come out.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that is also listening and watching, and not allowing yourself to be love bombed. Understanding that is a key trait of a narcissist, love bombing, to be able to if you see it happening, somebody trying to take you out to really nice dinners or really nice dates or really nice trips or gifts at the beginning. Lots of
early on.
Lots of verbal affirmation, making you feel like a princess, ladies. That's love bombing. That's love bombing. And so you've got to have boundaries and limitations on that and not allow necessarily that to take place, because that will, if they can't do their part, if they can't do their thing and manipulate, they're not going to keep pursuing.
Exactly.
So and that goes for at any point during the relationship. If you're 10 years down the road, this, and you call them out, there's a lot of different things that can happen depending on what type of narcissist
Exactly.
it is. Some narcissists will go off the rails,
right.
Crazy off the rails, and some will turn. Those are the ones that are passive aggressive and will turn and tell stories and gaslight you're the one and tell their friends and their family how horrible you are. So there's so many manipulation games in all of this.
Right.
It is so about a manipulation.
And it's just devastating for the other person. It just is. And I think on that note, I don't know how many times a week you get asked this question, but will he treat her better than he treated me?
No.
No, I know,
No.
right? No, nope, not going to happen.
Yeah.
Nope.
That is, I can say that from other women and ladies, I know, and I see that there's some comments. I'd love to get to those. One of the things I know with you ladies, you can say with a relationship with a narcissist is that it's probably the best you've ever been treated. And that's a hard place to get out of when you start dating normal, healthy men. And by the way, even though narcissists can be men or women, and I know plenty of female narcissists.
Ooh, I do too, Jennifer.
Narcissistic personality disorder, the true disorder, is more men than women. That's not my fact. That's a fact. That's just a medical fact. It is more men than women, but women can be narcissists and are, I promise you. Krista says the only thing they go back to is their destructive behavior. Correct. You can count on that 100%. Jerry Ann says you're trying to make them happy while self-doubting. You want to save the relationship and we think we can do it. It ends up being self-sabotage. Yeah, all of the good things they feed you along the way and all of the love bombing and all of the positive reinforcement you get, which is not much as it goes on,
right.
You get addicted to that. And then when you please them and make them happy, there's an addiction to that because of the reward process with a narcissist when you make them happy.
Right.
And or you feed their ego.
And have you ever found that the standards keep changing? You make them happy that, I don't know, maybe they want dinner 3 times a week. I don't know. And then you do that, but that's not quite good enough. If the dinner wasn't what they wanted, why didn't you ask them? It's never quite good enough. So you try harder and harder. It's exhausting.
Absolutely. No, that's, God, that is so true. They're so critical.
So critical.
So critical. Barbara was in a relationship for a long time too with one. She said, after being with one for so long, how do you trust your instincts when to start dating again so you don't fall in the same trap? And that's a really, really great question. And here comes the question. So we're gonna get to you guys. I think the thing, Barbara, is number one, there's a healing that needs to take place before you get back out there. Because if you don't trust yourself and know yourself and love yourself, you will end up back in this dynamic. Because at the end of the day, there is also your component of what you bring to the table in a narcissistic relationship. So and here's where we need to talk about that. A lot of women and men that get into narcissistic relationships, both of you, it's because there's a codependency factor.
Exactly.
So because that's a big, big thing. So let's talk about the codependency factor. I'm going to let you hit that.
It's the people pleasing. It is that everything that happens is your fault. Mm-hmm. And the narcissist supports that. And you find yourself in this cycle of working so hard to please the narcissist. And here's how I know when I've met a narcissist out here in this crazy dating world. My body talks to me. And I've learned, I just got that feeling. Okay, so just thinking about it, my body speaks to me, and I've heard that from a lot of men and women. My stomach kind of turns, and yes, there's that excitement and that major attraction, but after that, I know what happens. So I've learned just to be nice and keep it moving.
Yeah, so that's anxiety. Mm-hmm. So there's an inner anxiety.
Because I know, and it takes me back to years and years and years of abuse, and I'm not going to do that again.
Right. Yeah. Those little passive aggressive remarks.
Yes.
And noticing how people treat other people, and that's a way to be able to tell too. I mean, you have to be able to trust your instincts, and knowledge is power when it comes to something like this. I mean, I'm a firm believer that we have to listen to our instincts, but we also have to listen to our brain.
Right.
Because there are times when, because the narcissist, and we haven't used this word yet, but it's like the biggest word to describe a narcissist, they're charming.
They are.
They're so charming. And that when you are being charmed and wooed and courted that way, it's such a great feeling. It's a hard thing to have to step back and look at objectively, like what's real, what's not real.
Exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm. And to be able to look at that person and how are they treating other people in their world, in their life, maybe the people that they think don't matter as much, like the wait staff and stuff like that.
I was just going to say, you hit on something earlier. Look at how they treat servers in a restaurant. Maybe if you have gone away with them on a vacation, look at how they treat the hotel staff, the housekeepers. Do they speak to them with disdain and criticism, or are they kind?
Yeah, and I will say this too. I think, with how do you know when you're ready to get back out there? When it's one thing to use your instincts and your brain, and it's another to be skeptical and not trust. So if you're skeptical and you don't trust, you're not emotionally ready to get back out there, because you're always looking at somebody from a skeptical point of view, and nobody deserves that going on a first meeting. Yes, you want to be aware. Yes, you want to be educated, but no, you don't want to dump your emotional stuff on somebody else or give them traits of something that they may or may not have, because there are traits of narcissism that don't belong to narcissists. So, we all all of us can display narcissistic traits without being a narcissist. So you don't want to just spot one thing and go, oh, well, there that is, and I recognize that, and so I got to get out of this. So you've got to be well-rounded and healed. Barbara said, as soon as I stopped making him totally happy, he was working on another one and is now with her and totally unhappy. That is true. And I say the one thing with a narcissist is once they've stopped love bombing you, once they have won the game,
Right. And they know you are hooked
You are
and that you
hooked.
love them and you will do anything for them.
they're already gone.
They're gone.
Already on
In
to
their
the next.
mind, they're onto the, or sometimes not even in their mind,
Not
right?
even in
They're
their mind.
texting. They're,
Yeah.
they're on Facebook a lot more, messaging. Yeah, they've moved on.
They're usually, I hate to say it, but they're usually already having affairs with other women because there's nothing that can, with a narcissist, there's nothing that can satisfy that empty hole inside of them of their self-worth. So they have to they're constantly seeking validation. You know, you walk into a room and that life of the party, that person that's seeking all that attention, chances are that person is a narcissist. I hate to say it, but chances are they probably are. So ladies, if you've attracted narcissists, or men, same thing, that's probably the person you need to stay away from.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a really easy way to spot one, is they typically are the center of attention and love it. There's some people that are getting the center of attention and don't love it, but the ones that do, that enjoy it and are feeding into it, and you can see that they're usually the narcissist. So
You have the life of the party. Like, for example, maybe you go to a concert and the person you're there with, ladies, the guy you're there with is buying drinks for everyone at the table. You know, that I've seen that happen before.
yeah,
and
absolutely.
they're strangers, but he's got to be the.
But it's now they've hooked all these people, and they're such a great person, and you're such a great man, you're such a great woman because you did this. And it could be with women because that tends to be with men where they buy drinks or shots or whatever for everybody. The woman is people pleasing, you know, kind of thing. So so thank you so much for this topic, Kathy says, much related. Does it take two narcissists together for them to be in a successful relationship? Oh, God, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. That would be horrible, wouldn't it? Can you think? Oh, my goodness.
Two narcissists could not share the same platform.
I know of one marriage between two narcissists, and it lasted 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And then it blew up bigger than you would ever imagine.
Yeah. Because remember, the one always needs to be the center of attention. And that's the other thing, too, that you want to look out for is that person that needs to be the center of attention, has that grandiose life and social life, but yet wants to, their partner isn't allowed to do the same. They can go out, they can do whatever they want, but the partner needs to stay in, and the partner needs to not get attention in any way, shape, or form, whether that be going out, whether that be on social media or anything. They can't stand if their partner gets more attention than they do.
Exactly. And sometimes gets any attention at all.
Yes.
They'll blame you because maybe you were encouraging that attention, or you just, you know, of course,
Yeah, it's your
you
fault.
look so pretty tonight that every man was hitting on you, and that's what you wanted, isn't it?
Yeah, you wore that intentionally to get attention. Yeah. No, God, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Bringing back some bad memories, aren't I?
That's all good. I have done so much therapy and work.
Yeah. But again, if any of these things that we're saying are ringing true to you, you know, then these are typical things of a narcissist. That's called gaslighting. So let's hit that. I know we have a lot more comments. But let's talk about gaslighting a little bit, because that's a big element. The thing that this is how they break you down and whittle away your self-esteem and your self-confidence. So it's a huge component. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes, let's talk about gaslighting. I would say that's the number one manipulation tactic used by a narcissist, because they can end up controlling you. And what they do, it is a way of altering your reality. Like you might say something or do something, or the narcissist will say something or do something, and then you question it. You say, you know, when you said that, it really hurt my feelings. And the narcissist will go, I didn't say that. It's like they read a book with these phrases. I even heard once, you must have misheard me. And toward the end of a relationship, I was once going, yeah, I got my hearing checked. It's all good, bud.
Right.
But they make you doubt your own reality.
Right. Everything's turned. So if you say, you know what, yelled at me earlier and said these awful things to me and it hurt my feelings. They'll say, you know what? Well, you made me do that. You did. So there's that blame shifting is what happens. They can never look at what they did. And if they do, there are moments like breakthrough moment where you think you got them, where they're like, I realize I did something wrong, but they don't really. They're just saying it to manipulate, to get you back in that pattern where they can get you back. But they don't take responsibility for anything. It's always your fault. So they will always turn it on you. It doesn't matter. You cheated on me. Well, you were withholding sex from me and being cold. So I had to, I had to act out, or I had to go get it somewhere, and I was hurt, or what, they can never take accountability for their own emotions. It always is blame shifting. It comes back to you. You all that have, I know, because there's so many people watching that can relate to this. This is such a big conversation.
It is. We could do 2 hours on gaslighting alone.
I know.
I call it flipping the script. They flip the script. They just go back and just change what you said, and you start believing it. And it's called crazy making for a reason. You begin to feel like you're going crazy.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Thank you for bringing that up. That's the other element of this, of the gaslighting and the blame shifting. They will make you feel crazy. They will say you're crazy. That is definitely a tactic that a lot of narcissists use, is saying you're crazy. And that's a big one. I mean,
and then they'll add, everyone else also thinks you're crazy. I spoke to your dad and he thinks you have issues. I've heard that before. And your whole family, I mean, they think you're nuts.
And again, that's isolating you. That's a way of manipulating you to whittle away your self-esteem. You guys, again, know what I'm talking about. So when attachment style, quick tests help to avoid narcissistic individuals. Anxious styles seem to graduate to avoidant. Jamie, I'm going to say no on that with the attachment styles. Attachment is I think you could probably put a lot of narcissists into anxious attached, but at the same time, those attachment styles hold, I think, over psychologically, big picture, they don't hold as much weight as people think that they do. They're just part of it. I think it's good that you know your attachment style. I think that it's great that you know your partners, but do I think you can categorize this into narcissism? I don't. I just think it's a whole different conversation. Jerry Ann says, there's no such thing as a fair and level conversation. It turns to you being accused of nagging, living in the past. So the conversation can never happen.
We talk about the victim, how the narcissist is always the victim.
Yes.
And that's what I mean about flipping the script. Maybe they said something that really hurt your feelings and you want to talk to them about it. And then they immediately turn it and they're like, well, yesterday you said this and you didn't see me, but I went and cried about it. And my life is just so hard because you don't appreciate everything I do. And it just catches momentum, and there it goes. Then you end up apologizing for something you really didn't do or even know why you're apologizing.
Yeah, no, that's...
They can play the victim. They're the perpetrator, but they become the victim quickly when they've done something deep down they know is their fault.
Well, again, that's how they manipulate.
Right.
That's how they've learned to manipulate. Not that I would ever make excuses for narcissists, but it is embedded in their upbringing as well. And some of the stuff is learned behaviors as well. And it's, there's wounds all over the place as adults in relationships. Anybody, again, over the age of 40, which is what we're going to talk about.
Right.
But everybody brings baggage in. Every single person brings baggage in, and it is up to us initially when we meet somebody to assess that, to really listen, sit back, watch, listen, and assess that, because we don't want to be victims of any of the stuff that's out there, right? Wounded people that aren't ready for a relationship, a narcissistic abuse, any of those things. And if you've attracted narcissists in the past, if you haven't done the work, you're going to attract them again in the future. So you need to be uber aware of all of this information and really be moving. Number one, get some help. I'm not going to say get in therapy because I don't necessarily like the typical therapeutic mode, to be honest, but educate yourself. There's a million books on this. There are a million discussions going on this. Be very careful also where you go for this information, because there's a lot of people talking about a lot of things, relationships,
Right.
Narcissism and such. And especially not you, but especially people that have been wounded in relationships, that think that because they've been wounded and they feel like they're recovering, that they can talk about it and be an expert. And you don't want that either. You don't want a wounded person trying to help you heal. You need somebody on the outside giving you objective information. So make sure you go to credible sources, because there's a lot of information out about this. I'm guilty. I've not seen your podcast with Les Carter. I would love to. And that may be a good source, because he's a doctor of this,
Right,
correct?
right,
This is what he's
right.
been talking about for years, and I think it's important. And guys, I see a lot of you jumping in here as well. Women are narcissists too. 100% they are narcissists.
Yes. Ooh, I've met
So-
some real stinkers, as my father would say.
Yeah, and I think in this day and age, we are breeding them also with social media.
Yes.
And kids are growing up, with very sheltered and in a narcissistic world, a me world. So I think we just have to be cautious, aware, and educated.
Exactly, exactly. And back to what you were talking about, healing. Everyone heals in different ways at different speeds, and it's not a linear process, guys. It's more like this, and you get better and better, but you'll have great days and you'll have really bad days. But that's okay, because at the end, every day you find a little more peace. But people are like, Laura, how have you done it? And I still have a coach. She's a life coach, but she helped me through my recovery. And she's the one who encouraged me to write the book, which was a bestseller, because she's like, you got to get your story out there. So many people have been through this. And then I've had a therapist off and on since I was probably in college.
That's a good point too. I think that there's a comfort in hearing somebody else's story so that you understand you're not alone, because that narcissist can make you feel so isolated and so bad, and has whittled away so much of your self-esteem. When you hear that other people have gone through and you're like, oh my God, he said that to me too, or she did that.
Right.
Then you see that this was a behavior, it wasn't you. And that's a huge healing point where you understand none of that was true. Like none of that was true. And that's a big, because people want to make it about them. Like, what didn't I see? Or what was I missing? Or how did I attract that? How did I get used like that? How did I get abused like that? And they're just so caught off guard. It's what happens. And there's so many narcissists out there doing this. You're not alone. And there is a comfort in that, but we don't want to stay there. Just like with alcoholism, right? We don't want to, in any addiction, you don't want to stay there.
Right.
You don't want to stay a victim of this. You were a victim of it, but knowledge is power. And you can move on, and you can get in a healthy relationship, which Darren said, why can't men and women just find each other and hold hands and love each other? I'm with you. They can. They absolutely can if they find the right person.
Sometimes the other person has so much baggage, they can't hold your hand. So it might be time to walk away.
Which, people, is why you need to get rid of your baggage.
Right.
Before you get into a relationship. Because if you have baggage, you can't see through your baggage to see somebody else's baggage. So there's the whole idea of toxic people attract toxic people, right?
Hurt people hurt
Yep,
people.
exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
And there is that element. So you've got to focus on you. That's the moving forward. You focus on you. Knowledge is power. Get yourself healthy. Understand why you were attracted to and allowed it. Because that's the important part, is what was it in you that became vulnerable to it. And listen, again, narcissists love really good, strong, amazing, beautiful people. So don't think that there's anything wrong with you because you fell victim to this. Strong, amazing people can also be victims of narcissism.
I know the woman who started World Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day, which is June 1st every year. Her first name is Bree. I can't recall her last name right now. she is an LCSW, so a licensed clinical social worker. She's a counselor to many. Jen, she was with a narcissist for 8 years.
Yeah.
And didn't see it. And she's competent and trained. So they can be really, really good. So you can't beat yourself up for it. You just live and learn. And
if you've never
move
been with
on.
one, if you've never been with one, you don't know.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. If you've never been with one, you don't know. You can fall victim to it. I have,
Yes.
and I also think that, thank God, there's so much information out there now about it. Let's talk about maybe some sources. So we know you have the show, Les Carter, but let's talk about some books. So your book is
Ugly Love.
Ugly Love. Okay. Great cover.
Thank you.
I love a book. If you've got a narcissist in your life, I love the book Disarming the Narcissist. It's all ways in which you can, how to deal with them. The other thing I think for recovery is reading the book Codependent No More, Melanie Beatty.
Yes.
One of my very favorite books. I'll lead a lot of people to that have been in narcissistic relationships, because a lot of that's where your behaviors come in. So it's what they did, and then there's who you are and what you did. Mm-hmm. And when you start getting into that book and those behaviors, that's when you're going to start realizing that's where I fed into this, right? There's a yin and a yang. There's
right. And as someone who has attracted narcissists over and over and been codependent, still working on that, it's not a book that shames you. It is one that just says, why don't you let that go today? You don't have to please everyone. Let it go. And you learn, oh, okay, it's so freeing.
Right.
You get to be you. So I was worried about that. Codependent no more. Is she going to change everything about me? No. Mm-mm.
That's interesting. I'm not going to analyze what you just said, but I am. Mm-hmm. You just said I'm afraid of getting healthy. Is she going to change me? Is this going to change everything about me? Mm-hmm. And there's a fear associated with that, which means there's an attachment to something else, to being maybe it's attachment to controlling who you are, or you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that is real. I've heard people say that before with, reading books or coming to counseling, because I've done this for so long, that they're afraid of getting healthy. They're afraid of having to change themselves. You need to change yourself. You need to be aware of these things. But I love that you brought that up, because I think that's
what
a
I
valid
felt
fear.
When I picked up that book. It scared me to death.
Years of going through abuse, years of being in toxic love and relationships, even when it comes to family, we learn coping mechanisms. And so when you have coping mechanisms and then somebody says, well, those don't work, but they've gotten you through your whole life. And somebody says, those aren't going to work anymore. What you're doing is not functional.
Yes, you're so correct.
Yeah, and
there it is right there.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you have to change it. You have to change. And I find that in counseling being one of the hardest points is that somebody doesn't want to look at the fact that they're going to have to change, or look at the fact that they've attracted someone that isn't healthy, and I need to look at why that is, or understand why that is. And we've got to grow. And just the tools that got us from where we were as a child, especially in a toxic childhood, to adulthood. When you become an adult, you have more cognitive tools available to you to deal with things differently than you did as a child. So you've got to utilize those if you want to change your life and change your experiences. You've got to change the way you're reacting to things and the way you're responding to things. And will it change you? Yes, but in a good, functional way. You can't be afraid of it. Yeah.
Right.
No,
exactly.
I am so glad you said that.
I'm so glad I said that too.
There's so many
was not
people,
planned.
guarantee, that are sitting there, and so many people that are sitting there watching and relating to that statement in one way or the other, being afraid of having to change who they are. And especially those that grew up in toxic childhoods, because the tools you got to get through and surviving is a different life than thriving. So
surviving, when I think of surviving, I think of white knuckling it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did as a child, not even knowing. But into my adulthood, absolutely. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but you find things that most of the time they're not healthy, are they? You gravitate toward things to survive what you're going through. As a teenager, I got an eating disorder. I was like down to 89 pounds, sick, but it was the only thing I could control in my life because the narcissist was so controlling.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could control was what I ate. I couldn't control what I wore, how my hair was done. I couldn't control what I believed in. I was told what to believe, what to say, how to act.
And you know, again, I always say this in these interesting conversations like this. I feel like there's a whole other conversation in this because as you and I were talking initially about this, and I knew this was just going to be, it was just going to flow, but that whole the mother and father narcissists and kids growing up, there's so much to that conversation.
Oh, there's
too.
so much. Like my brother was affected differently.
Yes,
he had a hard time in the beginning. He didn't understand how to nurture.
Right.
And he has 4 great kids, and he's the best dad now ever. But, you know, when they were itty bitty, he's like, I don't know how to nurture because he hadn't received that. Yeah.
And, you know, narcissistic mothers tend to gravitate more toward their sons. And it's just different. It's just a different, it's a different deal and how everyone's looked at in the family. Different dynamics for everybody, and everybody's situation is different, and we get that. Loved your interaction. Jamie said, "Where can we find Angry Love? Where can they find your book?"
It is on Amazon. It's available at bookstores across the country.
We're just blessed to have you here today.
It's
You
been
are
so much
just
fun.
Oh my
It's been
God,
so much fun.
You're wonderful. Just she has so much information. We could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
I know it's such a big subject, and I want to say, educate yourself. There are so many sources out there. You don't have to go get therapy, although it is good to talk to somebody, just as a sounding board and to get some tools. So that's the important part of why we get counseling for this as a victim of coming out of this, to help you establish a healthy sense of self after abusive relationships. But there's plenty of books out there as well. So start looking around, educating yourself in valid sources. Super important.
We have a website, Jen, real quick, survivingnarcissism.tv.
Okay.
It even has a quiz on there that Dr. Carter developed. Is your partner a narcissist?
Okay, perfect.
So,
you know, I speaking of narcissism, I'm gonna end this. We got so into the conversation. I wanted to mention our sponsor that gave away the great
awesome.
the Jeuveau. We gave away a bunch of Jeuveau.
That's awesome.
At the event. They're doing $100 off of any filler this month. So for the rest of this month, which is a great deal. You know what? And at the end of the day, we're not talking about narcissism when we want to be beautiful. You know, being beautiful matters, and part of building our confidence is feeling good about ourselves. So if you need to do something, whatever that be, lose weight, you know, do something to your face, you know, makeup. I love my eyelashes.
I love your eyelashes.
I'm addicted to getting those done so I don't have to wear eye makeup. But whatever it is that makes you feel beautiful, do that, because it all of this stuff helps, you know, in the big picture. And next week on the show, we're going to actually be giving away a whole face full of Jeuveau again. So make sure you're tuned in next week.
You can completely change.
I know. Why not? Okay. So thank you all for watching. And you can also find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, all of the audio stations as well if you want to listen to this again. So thanks for being here and participating. We'll see you next week. This is Jennifer. Thanks for listening today, and please subscribe to the podcast. Every single week we'll have new information, and if you'd like to find out more information or if you have any questions, please go to my website at lovejen.com, or you can find me on Facebook at my personal page, Jennifer Stiers.